Hello, everybody. Welcome to Airing It Out. I am Fuller, and y'all know what it is. It's that time of the week that we come in and we pour into each other some vibrant things from vibrant guests. And today, we have Rena Fuller. And yes, it's a coincidence. I know you all saying, how is that? You're Fuller, she's Fuller. So that lets you know that your cup can only get fuller today. How about that? With Rena? Rena is going to come in and she's going to share with us how when diversity comes into your life to destroy, you can still overcome that diversity and come into a light that shines out and helps each and every person that you come in contact with, because now you're an overflow of something that you've learned in your past. And as we step into this, if you don't know, let me let you know a little bit about Airing It Out. Here at Airing It Out, we like to come in and bring you a vast amount of people that come in, and they come from diverse places in the world. They come with diversity in their selves that shows you and me an overflow of how when you put patterns and strategies into work, how it can come into play into your life. And it does comes with us breaking up all those old things that don't work for us anymore and allow these new things that our guests bring to us to come in and help us. It may not be able to help you, but it can help somebody that's in your circle. So that's why we pass things on. So today, as we get started, I want to introduce you to Miss Rena Fuller, who is the owner and operator of RLF Closing in the greater Houston area, but she's just not there. She's over the US. So she's going to also show us and tell us how she got to be into this magnificent place that she's in. So without any further ado, grab your pen, grab you a paper, however you want to write it down. But it's important that you write it down, because the cortex between your brain in your hand, there's a motor skill there that helps us to learn and develop whatever we're learning much better than when we're just pecking on the keyboard. So you guys grab your stuff and let's learn. And I'm going to turn this over to Miss Rena Fuller. Rena, come in and please air it out with us. How did you become this amazing woman that you have become?
Wow, what a great introduction. I appreciate that. I truly do. Well, I actually grew up in Tennessee, in the hills of Tennessee. And that in itself will give you a little bit of background. Yes, we have the same last name. My husband's last name is Fuller, which was quite ironic when we met. But yeah, I grew up in Tennessee. My mother was a single mom with 7 kids. She had to feed all by herself because my dad left us. But we lived on a farm, so we grew everything. So we learned how to work hard. And my mother always taught us, you don't need anybody. You can do it yourself. Well, I wanted a man, so I wanted help, but I couldn't do it myself also. So that's how we grew up. And so when I was young, we did everything, everything. My mother made sure we had everything that we needed. Maybe not everything we wanted, but we had more than enough. And I grew up very happy. We did have to work hard, but we also played hard. But I went to college, and that's where I met my husband. And I have a degree in fashion merchandising. So you mentioned
that's why you always so snazzy when I see you. That makes sense. That lines up with that.
I like clothes. I just really like clothes. So if I'm going to buy something, I'm going to buy clothes. Okay. So that's where my degree is. I like that, and that's where I met my husband.
Okay.
He was in music major. I was in fashion. But that was in the late 70s. And that was a time where my husband is a Black man. And that was a time in the late 70s in the hills of Tennessee. You did not mix.
Yeah, that was a no-no.
You didn't mix black and white. That just, you could say hi And that's the extent. You didn't have Black friends. Excuse me. So that was the extent of all that. So we actually just started hanging out, with all I started hanging out with all the music people because he did music. And I was in music in high school. So I was in the band, I played flute, piccolo. I was a majorette. So my other siblings had not done any of that. So I was the first one to do that. So I was kind of the one that made things happen.
So
But
like
anyway,
a model, you were more of a model for them in that aspect because they had not ever encountered the life that you had gotten in school as far as the band and meeting and especially dating outside of your race.
Oh yeah, you didn't do that. Excuse me. But yes. So my older siblings were very studious. Okay. They were, beta club, and except for my oldest sister, my oldest brother quit school. And then the next sister and the next two sisters were very studious. I was okay student. That was not my thing. I'm a party girl. I like to have fun. Mm-hmm. But growing up with a very strict Southern Baptist mother, your fun was very, very limited. With that. I mean, I didn't have any, I didn't have anything else to do anyway. But in college, things were different. You were on your own. You got to do your own thing. I was 2.5 hours away from mom. And so what mom didn't know, mom didn't know.
No, right. Yeah.
But as you're a mother as well, even if our kids do something, we will know at some point.
Right, at some point. And I'm quite sure there's some moms that's going to listen or are listening. And I'm quite sure they sitting there saying, yes. Uh-huh. And we've all been where you were. You leave, you get away from home. You know what they say, if the cat's away, the mouse will play.
Exactly. and the mouse played quite a bit. So I enjoyed college. First 2 years I messed up. I played too much. But it took me the next 2.5 years to get through and ended up doing very well. But my junior year is when I met my husband to be, I guess, at that point. He was in a fraternity. A very good friend from high school said, come over to the fraternity. And I'm like, I don't know about that. Ended up going, and things happened. And that's a whole long story. But excuse me. But anyway, we met, we hung out. He didn't have a car. I didn't have a car. So we just walked and hung out. That's what you did. And so we ended up falling in love. So I graduated first. I moved to Memphis, got a job. My job moved me to Mississippi. At that point in my life, I thought, oh my God, my mother hasn't found out about my husband. I'm dating a Black man. So I thought, let me just break up with him. And the guy that I'm, work with because I moved to Mississippi, he's a white guy. He fell in love with me. And I thought, well, I'll just marry him. Almost did. Went to the point of where I went to Memphis with his mother, my mother, got the dress, got the hat, got the shoes, the whole bit. And I'm thinking, I don't even like this guy. I cannot marry this guy.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. I mean, please share, how was that for you? Because that's pretty much following what else wants you to do. Your true passion. So how was that? How were you living with that?
It was very difficult. I really tried. I knew it would kill my mother emotionally. It would harm her health, I thought, physically, if she found out I was dating a Black man, because you just didn't do that where I'm from. And I thought, well, I'll make my mother happy. I'll marry this white guy. I'll just deal with it. And I can do that. But, you have to be, at some point you have to say, no, I have to be me, who I am. And finally, and when I broke up with Al, who's my late husband, when I broke up with him to marry this other guy, it almost killed both of us. And I thought, why am I doing this? I really, the white guy I liked, he was a nice guy. We got along okay, but he liked stuff I didn't like. He liked sports. I don't like sports. I like music.
Mhm.
Al liked music. I mean, I just didn't like that thing.
There was nothing common. There was not enough common grounds for you to be, especially going to marry, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I
yeah,
mean, I ended up having to buy my own wedding ring, engagement ring, and I thought something's wrong here. This
yeah,
is not right.
yeah.
And so I broke up with him. Al and I got back together. By this time, the guy that hired me initially out of college he moved companies and called me somehow, by the grace of God, is the only thing I can explain.
Hmm, hmm.
The day after I broke up with the white guy from Mississippi, the old boss called me and said, I moved with a new company. Would you be willing to move to Houston?
Hmm.
And I'm like, Um,
Line alignment here.
yeah, so he flew me down here. I found out I like it. So I came back. Al and I had already gotten back together. And then 2 weeks later, Al drove down. He caught a bus, came to Mississippi, picked me up, packed me up, and he drove me to Texas. And 6 months after that, he graduated college and he moved to Houston. Now, this whole time, my mother did not know that we were together. This whole
Oh,
time.
I was going to ask her, where's mom in this?
She had no, I think she probably had a clue, but she'd never said anything.
Okay.
Although I did have one sister that said something. But anyway, we moved to Houston, and that's where we started our life together. When Al graduated from college, I actually flew to Tennessee to watch him go through the line. I flew home the next day. He got in the car from graduation, and his friend drove him 12 hours to Houston, and that's where he remained for the rest of his life.
Hmm.
So it was shortly after that, after he had moved here, we started going to a church here. We were both raised in church. And, you get in college and you kind of go away from it.
Yeah.
But we started going back to church and ended up going to a Baptist church here, pretty much an all-white church. I was the first Black man at the church, and that in itself was a challenge because it split the church open. But the pastor was so gracious and so nice. And we were coming down the steps one day, and it's an older white man, and he was talking to Al and I. He said, you guys want to get married? I'd love to marry you. And we're like, ooh, okay, maybe we should get married. Okay.
Yeah.
A few months later, we got married.
Okay.
And then a couple of years later, we started having kids. So we had, in total, we've had 7 children. We have 2 alive now. But before we got married, my family found out about it.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. So now that we're to this point, where's the family? Like, what are they saying? Because I'm quite sure with you saying that your upbringing, the family was close knit.
Yes.
So I'm quite sure mom and sisters are like, okay, where are you and what are you doing?
Mm-hmm. Well, we were very close knit. And when they found out that I was dating Al, I had some of my siblings call me and tell me, you're killing our mother. Why are you doing this? And one sibling called me and basically said, if you ever come back here, either of you, I'll, do harm to you. And so it was quite scary to me. And it was devastating because from that point, for about 6 years, I got hate mail. And my siblings did not talk to me at all. And if I did come to Tennessee to see my mom, I would walk in one door and they would walk out the other. So there was a lot of anger, and I understand it because where I'm from, I didn't understand it then, but I do now. But where I'm from, you did not mix, and nobody wanted to have anything to do with you if you did mix. Because if you mixed with whites and blacks at that point in time, you were a low class person.
from their
And
perspective. That's the perspective that they had.
that's the
Their
perspective they
plan.
had. That's what they had.
Right.
And so it was quite devastating to me, because here I am, 12 hours away, in a city that I don't know anybody. And it's Houston at that time was a smaller city, but it was growing rapidly.
Mhm.
But I didn't know anybody. And, for 6 months, I was here by myself. And then Al moved here, and we didn't know anybody. So we had to be on our own. We didn't have any family help. We didn't have anybody that could help us do anything. So we got, we just met people here, and they became like our family.
Mhm.
And it was very hard for me, because I was very close to my family. We did everything.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I'm quite sure it affected you, because listening to you growing up in the background, you could tell y'all was a close-knit family.
Yeah.
I mean, and I know I a little bit myself, farm life, that's what it is. It's built on the foundation of family and helping each other to fit through this.
And with Al's family, he was from a little town about hour and a half northwest of where I'm from. I was like an hour and a half east of Memphis, and he was an hour north of Memphis. Okay. And his family did not disown him, but they told him the same thing that my family did. The blacks aren't going to accept you. The whites aren't going to accept you, and nobody will accept you. When I would go to his house before we left Tennessee, his uncle didn't like me, but he was never mean to me. None of his family was mean to me. And his uncle became, we became very good friends. His family pulled me in, and they were very nice to me. They were worried. They were concerned, but they were never ugly to me. My family, on the other hand, was not that way. And I could not go to my mom's house for many, many years until my nephew died. And then it was still very strange. I think my son was like 10 months old before my mother saw him. My daughter was 4 years old before my mother saw her. But it was very strange going there for a long time. And honestly, we had gotten into a new church shortly after my son died. I mean, after my son was born. And Al was pretty much on staff. But it took me 20 years to move past the anguish. And I didn't really I guess I had some anger there for a little while, but it wasn't really as much anger as it was hurt. And it just disrupted my whole life. But, we were here by ourselves, so we had to make it. But it took me literally 20 years, and we were in church all the time. Sunday, twice a day, Wednesday, and then we had Friday night services, and then we both sang on the praise team. So we were at church another night doing, praise and worship practice. So we were at church all the time. But it literally took me 20 years. Every time I went, I would just cry because it was hurtful. But God is good.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Yes, he did.
And I got to a point where I said, I understand where they're coming from, because they're coming from a place where that's how they grew up.
Yeah.
My mother went through the Depression. She was alive during the Depression.
Okay.
She went through all of the parts where the Black people, even when I was little, the Black community, we went to there was only one theater in our hometown. The white people would go in, get their drink and their candy, and go sit down. The Black people had to stay outside on the side. They could not come in the building till the white people were set down. So I grew up that way. So I understood where my family was coming from. I'm not saying that it was right, because it wasn't right. But I understood why they had those feelings.
Mm-hmm.
I had to get to the point where I say, I get it. I understand. But I choose to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, I had to tell my sister, I will come see you, but Al and the kids are coming with me.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell mom that if she wants to see me and my family, then she can come to your house, but she sees us all.
Mm-hmm.
Not
Yeah.
going, because I used to go and I would leave them at my sister's and I would go see my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I finally got to the point where I'm like, no, you got to take all of us. If you want me at
Yeah.
all, you got to take my whole family.
Mm-hmm.
Believe it or not, she came to my sister's house and was very cordial, very nice.
Okay.
Even invited us to come to her house, which was right up the road,
Mm-hmm.
a mile, not even a mile. We went up there and she said, why don't y'all just spend the night? And literally we were scared to death, but we did. And I said, Al, my mom lives in the country.
Mm-hmm.
She showed Al every fruit tree she had, told him everything. I mean, it was like a long lost buddy, like nothing had ever happened. And so I told Al, we'll stay here. I said, you sleep by the window side. I'll sleep by the door side. And if she comes in, because I had no idea if she would come in to kill us. I did not know.
Because
And
I mean, naturally, from everything that's happened, this is a shift now, and you're not sure where we're shifting to, but you were prepared mentally for the worst. I mean,
yes.
that's life. Yeah, that's us as humans. Yeah,
And we're in the country, and it's good old white boys there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know that because I grew up there.
Okay.
And I was scared. So I said, if anything happens, you knock that window out and go down the holler, and I'll find you.
Mm.
But nothing happened. My mother was very gracious. She got up, made him full breakfast, gave him all kinds of preserves. And from that point, she was very nice. She was never, he was never like the other son-in-laws, but
she had her own relationship with him.
She did the best she could. And for that, I'm grateful.
Yeah.
Now, she never really had a relationship with my children, and I think that hurts them even to this day. And my mother's passed like 9 years ago. My husband passed 11 years ago. So
on both sides.
Huh?
I said, I do apologize for your loss. Sorry for your loss on both sides. You know, your mom and your husband.
Yes. And, both of my parents have now deceased, and both of Al's parents are now deceased as well. But it was very challenging for me, but I think it made me stronger because I had to endure, and really, we had to grow towards God. So with Al and I, we didn't have a choice. We didn't have mama or daddy that we could run to.
So that was your source. That God was your source.
Was the only source.
Okay.
So we didn't have anybody else. I mean, we had friends that we love and trust to this day. I do have the same friends, but it's not like, if you're having a spat with your spouse, you can go run to mama. I didn't have that option. So Al and I had to work it out. And it took me a long time to get enough communication skills so I could actually work things out. But we got to the point where he would tick me off, and I could, after about half a day, I'm like, forget about it. It's over. But that took a long time. It took a lifetime. A lifetime. We were married for over 33 years. Before he passed.
So love truly in this case prevailed and took over everything, because if it wasn't for the true love that you guys had for each other, would you have made it through, your family, his family, where you were at that standpoint, because you both were very young and still figuring out yourselves and figuring out life at the same time.
Yes.
So the love really prevailed.
Yes, it did. And we had a great marriage. I mean, we had issues just like everybody else does, but we always worked it out. And part of our thing was that Al was the boisterous one. He
Okay.
was the one that was in front. He was the musician. He sang all over and played all over the world, in Europe and in over the US. He played and sang. He played saxophone. So he was, larger than life, had a huge laugh. Everybody still remembers him as had such a laugh. I mean, the owner of the Astros invited him personally to come there to sing, which he did for like 11 years. So people knew Al. I was the wallflower. I was the one that was in the back of the room, just kind of, letting Al take all the glory. I did all the work, but Al got the glory, and I was okay with that.
Because that was your team, though. That was the team. That was the dynamics of your team, and that's how you guys had built it. So it worked for you.
Yeah, it did. But when he died, there was a huge shift, because now I couldn't hide behind Al. And God, God is good and he's faithful.
Yes, he is.
Very faithful. And so when my husband died, within a year, 10 months after he died, I was being sued for the medical bills. It was over $1 million, and that was just one of them. And so I had to file bankruptcy, and that is difficult, extremely.
Yeah.
So it was like a whole new world for me. Now I had to be the sole provider. Yes. I had to make sure I didn't lose my house and my vehicle, and then, coming from a place of grief, it's like, I don't even know how to survive.
Yeah, because grief is a thing that a lot of people overlook it, but it is something that we do have to go through. Like you said, dealing with it and going through it are two different things. If you don't go through it, or you can't deal with it if you don't go through it. That's just it. You got to do it.
And everybody deals with grief differently. Yeah. And so my daughter and I went through a grief meeting one time, and we both said, oh, hell no, we cannot do this. I can't be around people crying all the time. I understand why they're crying. Me too, but I cannot do that. And so and I'm done, but God had to deal with me directly. And so I would stay home and watch Hallmark movies, probably the worst thing you could ever do, watch sappy Hallmark movies. But I did, because I love them. And I started reading my Bible, and I started reading my Jewish Bible. And, God just spoke to me. And then in December, I started going, my girlfriend invited me to a class, Millionaire Mind Intensive. I did that. And they said, oh, you need to buy this $10,000 course and come to California. So that's what I did. I couldn't pay attention, but I said I would buy this $10,000 course. And I went to 3rd of January that following year. This was January of 2015. And I went to Los Angeles for a class that, you got to coach with this class. $10,000. And then when I get home, that's when at 3:00 in the morning, I got home 3 days later. And that's when I found out I was being sued for the medical bills, and freaked out, ended up having to go through bankruptcy. But God is still good.
Yes, he is.
Because even though I could not pay for those classes and I had to cancel them, I was able to get my coach a free coaching out of it. And she still coached me for, I'm telling you, hardly like $20 a session, which is unheard of. But that's where I started. And I have the same coach almost 10 years later. It's not $20 a session anymore, but I don't care. Because I don't care what it is, because that's something I'm doing for me. She has helped me get past the grief. She's told me one time, a year later, she says, what do you want to do? You have to do something fun. I mean, I'm going through bankruptcy. My whole life is turned upside down. I don't know who I am, where I am, what I'm doing. I just don't know.
It's like you're in the beginning, you're like in the middle of becoming something, but you're unbecoming something as well. So it's like you're just in that middle stage of it.
Yeah, I'm in limbo. I don't know what, I don't even know what I'm doing.
Mhm.
But what I found out through that was that God's plan is a perfect plan. And he takes you where you're at, and he will achieve what he wants to do if you let it.
Yeah.
So even though my husband of 33 years just passed away, God is beginning to tell me, you still have something that I've called you to do. You need to do it. And I'm like, I don't know what that is. I don't know how to get there. I don't know if I'm capable of doing it. I don't know. But God does. And so he started walking me down that path with my coach, Brigida. You have the same coach.
Yes, Brigida, hopefully. I mean, yes. She's an awesome lady. I know that she is truly doing what God sent her to do, because she's very good at what she does. And we are blessed to know Brigida. Yes.
Yeah. But because of that, she actually helped my business grow to over $1 million in revenue within less than 10 years, probably about 6 years. And that was through her help to do that. I could not have done it on my own, but she helped me so much that, and in 2015, 16, she told me, you know, you have to have something fun. You've had a lot of grief. Now you have to move on. And so she said, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I don't know. Al and I always wanted to take ballroom dancing. We loved it. We watched it every year. So I said, but, you know, I don't even know how much it is or where you could go. Well, it turns out my girlfriend and I took a trip, and we both said we want to do ballroom dancing. So the next day I found a studio. She and I started going the very next day, and I've been there 9 years now.
Awesome. Yeah, I heard that you are quite the dancer. I saw a couple of videos. So yeah, because I
love it.
I think you've also won like some accolades for dancing, right? Like some awards and things.
I have. I mean, I'm still working on it, but you know, still learning how to put one foot in front of the other. But it's an amazing sport, which I never called myself an athlete, but I'm learning to do that, and it's quite fun. And here's where God is so good as well. With Brigida, she told me to every week write down your goals, yearly, monthly, weekly. And I did, and I just wrote them down. I didn't know how to make them happen. I didn't know what to do. I just wrote it down. But for years, every week, I'm telling you, I would write down, I do want to get remarried, and I want a husband. These are the qualities, and I listed them. They have to be, godly man. That's not negotiable. And there was the qualities that I wrote down on that list that were non-negotiable. And then there were some things that, we could negotiate. But I wrote it, the key was I wrote it down every week for, I don't know how many years, probably 3 or 4 years. I loved being married, and I wanted to get married again, but in the right time. I did not want to start
to the right person, because I mean, I couldn't even imagine you going into something with turmoil, because like you and Al had your differences, but it was still like a love connection there. So I can understand why you wanted it to wait and make sure right time and right person.
Yeah. And so I told myself after Al passed, I said, I'm going to wait at least 5 years before I want to date. I have friends that waited like 6 months, and one waited a year. And I'm like, I can't even start thinking at that point. I said, I don't want to do that. And so about a year, 5.5 years after Al passed, well, there was a guy at our dance studio. His instructor happened to be married to my instructor, and they kept saying, why don't you, y'all should go out. And I'm like, no, he's a old white guy, and he's short, and my husband was 6'3", 300 pounds, black man, and this guy is 5'10", 150 pounds soaking wet and translucent white. and super nice guy. But I'm like, he is not my type. And he
Mm-hmm.
said the same thing about me. I'm not his type.
Okay.
But we would see each other, at the studio, at the parties, and we danced together because everybody danced together. And then we just started hanging out. I actually invited him to go to one of our other friends at the studio. Her son was singing. So Dawn and I went. We had a blast. And from that point, we just started, talking to each other and started hanging out. And then we just started dating. And 5.5 years later, I got engaged.
Hey, congratulations. So the packaging was nothing you would have thought that you
No.
would have been attracted to in any kind of way.
No.
That with a shift of perception to say, hey, I'll give this a chance as far as friends dancing, it opened a door to something that you didn't even see.
Exactly.
Talk about building rapport.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and the other thing too was I had put, these are the qualities I want. I did not care about what color they were. I'm half Hispanic, so I could care less about what color. Although at that point, I'm kind of thinking I don't really want another black man because I don't want to compare anybody else to my husband. My husband was a wonderful man. And so, but I didn't really put any, stipulations on it either. And so I told God, I just want the right person for me.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying, like, because at first, let's just going back, when you first saw him, you was like, hold up, this guy, your husband was a certain height, six something, and now this guy was nowhere close to 6 something, and your husband was a big guy, and this guy was a smaller guy. So the packaging from your first description was nothing to what you would have imagined you doing or marrying, even dating. And you're right. So just talk about it. Like you said, talk about how that came about. With your visual, you didn't see it.
No.
But the heart saw something different.
Yes. He's a good man, and he's a godly man. And those were, in my opinion, for me, those were non-negotiable. That had to be. And so, God put us together. So we'll be getting married next summer. So
yes, congratulations. I'm so ecstatic. So with you and Don meeting and coming together, and that was a plus too, because he likes dance and he likes music.
Yes. Yeah.
That was a win for you.
It was. It is.
Yes.
It's a win-win for both of us.
Yes, that's why I said that was a win-win all around. Of course, our creator got his win because he brought y'all together, and then you both get the win out of enjoying each other for the remainder of life that you're together.
Yes, exactly.
So what brought you to start doing your business that you're in? Like, what were you doing prior to what you're doing now? Because now I know that you are doing notary, where you're doing closing all around the U.S.
Yes. Well, my kid, I stayed home with my children to raise my children. And they were singing. They were in a homeschool choir. So I homeschooled them.
Okay.
And so they were in the homeschool choir and they were singing at a Christmas event. It was in a little place we called Old Town Spring here. It's kind of like a little country little section, beautiful little country shops. And so they were singing, and an old friend from church drove by and saw my husband and I and said, "Hey, Al, why don't you come work for me?" He was a loan officer. So Al said, "Sure, I'll do that part-time." Al started doing it part-time, and then he asked me, he said, "Rena, why don't you close them for me?" Okay, now at this time, my husband never was very good at making money. He could do so many good things, but making money was not his forte. And so we struggled financially our entire life together, very much struggled financially. And so he started doing these loans, but he was very fearful because he was a very tall, very big black man going to people's homes at night. He was just very scared. And he's not a money kind of guy. He's not a numbers guy. He's a social dude. Okay. Yeah. So that wasn't his gig, but I started doing the closings and I started making really good money. I remember making $4,000 in one month. And I was like, oh my gosh, I never knew I could make $4,000 in a month before. Mm-hmm. And so I just started doing that. And then my husband quit doing the mortgages because it wasn't his deal, but I kept on. And it slowed down and started back up. And so my friend came back to Houston and started with a title company here to do all of their closings. I started working for that title company. And so it was just, I just kept doing closings whenever they needed on a contract basis. And then at some point, my sister told me, who lives here in Houston, said, why don't you start your own company? Okay. I don't know how to do that. So I just got a DBA. It was still just me. I was doing the same thing, but the original company would send me to all of their sister branches to do their closings. And so I would just go in and meet people. And finally, they started saying, hey, can you close these for me? And I said, sure. So where the closings for the original title company started going down, my business started going up until that company, the original company, went out of business. And then I just started doing closings for multiple people. And then when the escrow officers would go to a different company, they would call me, hey, can you come close me? Now that was at a time almost 30 years ago when there wasn't that much mobile notaries at that point. There was very few. And so people would say, hey, can you teach me? And I would just teach them for nothing. Brigida taught me very quickly, you don't give away, your talent, So that's a whole nother avenue.
We did it for years. We've all did it for years. And whether you were giving it away in a business aspect where you were working for a company, even though they might have been paying, you still wouldn't give them what you were worth. So yes, she's a big stickler for that. Like,
Exactly. But then it just started that my daughters needed to make extra money. So I taught her how to do it. And she started working for me very little, but a little. And then she started working more and more for me. And then my sister quit her job. And after about 2 years, she needed something and she started working for me as well. And then I had a good client who said, Rena, can you get somebody in, Louisiana for me? And I'm like, I don't think so. And so, a few weeks later, he said, Rena, can you get somebody over here for me? Sure. I have no idea how to do that, but I tell him that. I said, yeah, I'll find somebody. Yes. And so I actually started finding people, and they started telling me, hey, can you get somebody to go over here? Can you get somebody to go South Texas? Sure. Didn't have a clue how to do it, but I just started, figuring out. I would always say, yes, I'll do it. I'll figure it out as I go. But yes, I'll do it.
You didn't let the opportunity slip away from you by looking at what you didn't know.
Yes.
You knew if I get it, all things are possible.
That's right.
Through Christ who strengthens me. So you were able to, know that I can do this. You had that within yourself that I can do this. I can overcome this long as I take the opportunity. Exactly. So I like that you never let the opportunity slip out of your hands. And it's built you to be now throughout the U.S.
Yes, exactly. I had one of my clients in Dallas call me and say, Rena, one time years ago, he said, Rena, can you do this? And I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can do it. I mean, I'm book. I don't know. He said, Rena, you've never told me no. I said, oh, you're right. Yes, I will do it. And yes. I found a way. It was challenging, but I found a way. Right. And God has just opened doors to where now I am all over the U.S. All the time. And I actually do U.S. territories like Puerto Rico, U.S. Virgin Islands. Yes. And so anything that's a U.S. territory, Alaska, I do all the time. Hawaii, I do all the time. California, almost every day. And so I have notaries that I can pull from in every state, every rural area. And I'm also including, now new verticals like apostilles, which is like a cover letter for people who work out of the country or want to come into the country. But we also, I have a guy putting together my training program, which will be next month attached to my website. So that will be monetized, and we can train people so they know what they're doing.
Yes,
and
so, you can't just send anybody out to do this, because you guys have a lot of people's important documents in your hands, and if these things are not done correctly, it could blow up a whole deal, right?
It could. Yes. It could cause a lot of problems. And we do get notaries that don't have a clue what they're doing, because you don't, for $100 you can become a notary anywhere. But you have to get training. So I have a training program for the Houston area, which we do in person or via Zoom. But then next month we will be able to have a professionally done training program on our website, so that we can just tell people, go to my website, do it in your leisure, and then you can call me with any questions, and I'll answer the questions and help you through it. So that's another
definitely. So everybody, I mean, I don't know if you're interested in notary, but that is awesome, because I know it's something that I've been looking into and speaking with you myself. And it's a great, from what I looked at it can all be an excellent source of income, like a passive income for you to have, if you have the time to put into it. And if you want to go further, you could always go further, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So definitely at the end of our talk here with Rena, all of her information, her contact information will be at the end of this video. But Rena, what we do ask, as we've enjoyed our conversation with you today, we asked of each one of our guests that come on to leave us with something from you, something that our audience can take away with them that they can use in their everyday life if needed to be. A tool for them to put in their toolbox, a saying, or however you feel to grace us today.
Well, I think for me, the biggest thing I would say is, first of all, you have to trust in God. Let me rephrase that. I trust in God, and God has gotten me where I need to be for the moment, and is getting me through. The second thing I would say is, if you could have gotten there by yourself, if you would have done it already. So you need help. We all need help from time to time. I cannot stress to you how important a coach is. If you're in business, you need a business coach. If you're going through life issues, then get a life coach. But you need somebody that can help you and guide you through the process. And so those two things are things that have helped me. You're stronger than you think you are. Most people think they can't make it. Well, yes, you can. There are, and you will have challenges in your life. That's just life. So it's all in how you act and react to them. But if you have the right coach, I say she because my coach is a she, our coach is a she, but the right coach can help you through those challenges and show you an alternative way to move through. You still have the right to make that decision, but it just helps you glean from their experiences and their knowledge. And I tell you, I could not have made it without, first of all, my trust in God. And second of all, through my coach, who's helped me through everything in the last 10 years. So those are the two things I would highly recommend.
Thank you so much. So you guys, you heard that from Rena herself. And I know you guys are fuller from Miss Rena Fuller because I'm fuller. My cup is overflowing with the great things that she shared with us and showing us that love will prevail in each and everything that we're going through when you go in and you lead with that thing. Because we all heard Rena, but can you imagine your family, who you know, what you know, to be able to be separated from that, but then to come into such a glorious thing that Rena came in. So Rena, we really, really thank you so much for sharing your wonderful story with us. And thank you for leaving us that we know with our trust in God and finding a trusted and a reliable coach, a coach that shows up with loyalty to not just you, but to what you're going through and what you're in. You really have no clue, you guys. So lean into me. Try it out before you just say, hey, I don't want nobody in my life. I don't want anybody in my business. You right, not just anybody. You want the right person. And
Right.
we would like to give a shout out to Brigida, hopefully, for being the awesome person that she is. And as always, we give our reign to God because he is amazing and he does so many things that we don't even realize. He helps us when we don't even know we need to be helped. So, Rena, we hope to see you again. And we thank you for airing it out with us here. Remember, as you go about your day, that I love you, Rena loves you, but God loves you even more. Continue to strive to be the best you that you can be. And make sure you do it all right here in 2025. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It was a wonderful time.